So cheers to Kansas, from the heart of Germany, to be exact, from Göttingen, Lower Saxony. I'm Dennis Mönch. I'm with GBV for 5 years now. My first folio flower was Goldenrod. Honeysuckle was the first release I deployed to the new Kubernetes cluster I established here. I'm here with my colleague Sascha Dietrich, and we will present a brief overview of our EUREKA implementation experience to date.
Everything's fine. Continue.
Okay. For the handful amongst you who may not be familiar with the German library networks, let me give you a brief overview of who we are and how we host FOLIO. The Common Library Network, or GBV, is a library consortium of 7 German federal states. I won't mention every of them. You can read it on my slide, yes, thank you. One of our network comprises over 590 member libraries, academic and public libraries, as well as research institutions. We manage around 190 million holding records and are part of the Union Catalog K10+, which we operate jointly with the Southwest German Library Consortium SWB. As a central service provider for cataloging, library automation and library management systems, we serve northern and central Germany. Oh, whoa.
Not too far.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's not necessary to read every of these numbers to you, but perhaps it's important to mention if we are ready with our migration to EUREKA, we will have over 200 production instances in our cluster. Our technical infrastructure runs entirely on-premise and on dedicated hardware. The core consists of a Kubernetes cluster with 10 servers, complemented by a Postgres cluster of 3 servers, plus 1 witness server and an OpenSearch Kafka cluster with 3 servers also. All systems are interconnected with a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection. There are some numbers you might be interested in. Just download the slides if you need this for your things. And now I hand over to my colleague.
So, how did the early adopters program for EUREKA actually start? And the initial situation was that EUREKA was primarily developed and deployed on AWS by EBSCO, and and we had the situation that in order to get some acceptance in the community, we needed a more general deployment approach independent of AWS, and this was the initial idea behind the early adopters program, to get some early adopters and EBSCO together to figure out how to deploy EUREKA in a more general environment, which started this year in January. So how did we actually all start in this? We have a central document that describes in a step-by-step way how to set up EUREKA in a Kubernetes environment. Yeah. Yes. I hope I can read it. This is basically a big step-by-step guide, but you can split it up in 4 general steps or milestones. The base services, your Postgres, your Kafka services, then the EUREKA deployment with the actual managed applications and the functional modules from FOLIO. Then after that, the tenant setup, and finally the Stripes build. And I want to present basically some experience, some pitfalls that we encountered for all of these 4 steps in our early adopter experience. So to start with the base services. Setting up Postgres is pretty much following the standard guide. Thank you. The standard guide, what we will point out at this point is that you should increase the max connections from the default value, which is, I think, 100. In our production environment, we set it to 2,000 with, in our experience, about 1,300 concurrent connections in a high load situation in live environment. So definitely increase this number. So for Keycloak, when you set up Keycloak, there is a folio specific Docker image being used for Keycloak, so be sure to use that. And when you set up this deployment, make sure that you provide the environment variables as depicted in the installation guide. So the initial admin user is created when you spool up Keycloak, otherwise you're getting trouble later. Then for Vault setup, you can use the default HashiCorp Docker image, but this is very crucial that you remember this. After you set up the Vault and you initialized and unsealed it, you need to create a very specific secret inside a Vault that the folio components or manager applications later use. If you don't create this secret in the way that is specified in the guide, you will run into trouble with the manager applications. When it comes to Kafka, very important is that if you use a version pre 4.0, so 3.9 for example, make sure that you deploy the Zookeeper component as well. Kafka will go up without the Zookeeper component. It actually, from my memory, the managed applications will not complain about it being missing, but you will later get to trouble in the tenant entitlement phase because there are certain topics not being created and consumed. So be sure the Zookeeper is there as well. And for OpenSearch, you can use the default OpenSearch image that you can get on the net. Here's to be said, OpenSearch in the Folio environment requires a set of plugins to be enabled. I've written a guide in the installation guide how to do what these plugins are and how to enable them. So follow that instruction. And last but not least, the COM component, the API gateway. Also there's a folio specific image, so be sure to use that. Otherwise, it's just follow the guide. So once you've done that, your deployments are running, they are not crash looping. You get to the actual phase of creating the platform, the platform deployment. And the first thing you will touch is the manager applications. There are 3 of them: manager applications itself, manager tenants, and manager tenant entitlements. You can follow the guide pretty much on how to set them up, but I really highly recommend after deploying them that you check the container logs even for suspicious warnings and hopefully no errors, that you look into Kafka, that after deployment that they created Kafka topics. Otherwise, your connection to Kafka might be faulty. That you look into Keycloak, that each of the manager applications will create a client inside the master RAM for itself. If that client is not being created, you have a problem with your Keycloak connection, and you should fix that before continuing. And last but not least, be sure to check that Kong routes are actually created. So when you go to your Kong URL, your Kong API /tenants, for example, you should get an empty list of tenants provided by the manager tenants applications. If you don't get a route there, then there's a problem with your Kong communications between your managed applications and your Kong deployment. So if that works, you get to the step of actually selecting your applications that you want to deploy. So you actually need to make a selection of which apps you want. I will later go into more detail on this. In short, just do your application selection and deploy them according to the guide. Then comes the module discovery. This is pretty much the same as you use from OKAPI, with a little and important difference. When you provide the URL for the module, you need to point it to the sidecar of the module. So the default port is 8082. If you don't do that, it will not give you will not complain, but you will get very confusing error messages in the tenant entitlement phase. So make sure that the location is pointing to the 8082 port. And last but not least, then you deploy the modules. And here it is very important that in EUREKA, the discovery for a module needs to happen first. The sidecar of the module needs the discovery to be there in managed applications, otherwise it won't come up and your deployment will crash loopback. So once you have done that, you can get to, or rather, let's see, where do I actually get my application descriptors? And there I want to point you towards the URL that Craig McNally also mentioned yesterday, the platform LSP. And if you go there and you just get a GitHub repository, you need to select under text one of the FOLIO releases. For example, as I pointed here, Ramson CSP 6. And when you select that, you can get an install application JSON. And this list gives you the default applications for this FOLIO release with their, and most importantly, with their version number for this release. And for the example, in this example, platform minimal 4041. So what you do then is to go to GitHub again. There is a repository for each of these applications, example folio.org/add platform minimal, and there you go to tags and download the application descriptor for the version that you need. And this is how you get your application descriptors. So once you've done that, and you did your application deployment, app descriptor deployment, how do I actually get to the modules? Where are my YAMLs that I need to deploy them actually? And this is a bit more convoluted, but EBSCO provides in their shared pipelines library some example or some sample configurations. If you follow these links here, you will get a set of YAMLs. You have to select one, for example, a testing YAML. This is the default values for each deployment in a testing environment. And when you open this YAML, you get for each of the modules in FOLIO a set of default environment variables. And you take these and combine them with one of these charts in this repository. There you can download Helm charts for each of the modules in FOLIO. And you combine those and do, using Helm template, you generate a deployable YAML for each of the modules, basically. And I have to point out, this is very important, you're using default values here. You need to change and adjust the received YAML file and the values in there according to your needs. And also very important, these Helm charts create more than just a module and sidecar deployment. There are, for example, services in their end. Very important, a system user secret. And this secret dictates to the module whether it's actually living in an OKAPI environment or in a EUREKA environment. So what you need to do is you need to deploy this secret and assign it to the environment variables of your module deployment. Otherwise you get errors in the sidecar on tenant entitlement. This is very important. So once you've done this, you have your module deployments. They are not crash looping every 3 minutes. You can go to the next step. This is the tenant setup. And what you then do is, according to the guide, pretty straightforward, you create the tenant, you do the tenant entitlement according to the guide, and then you add your admin user. This is basically the same process as you would do with OKAPI, but this is very important. The tenant entitlement process is probably the most finicky step in this whole endeavor. And usually, if you get an error there, you need to look at the whole stack of your platform, from the base services up to the module sidecar and the module and sidecar logs, to understand what is happening. So do yourself the favor and set up your environment so you have an easy access to the logs of each of these components, because logs pass you will. You need to look everywhere to understand, okay, what is going wrong in this situation. And you need to be able to think around some corners with some of the error messages to understand what actually went wrong. But given that this happens, that you successfully entitle a tenant, some apps to a tenant, you are over the peak. From now on, you can go smooth sailing, because the last step is just a Stripe build, which you then deploy, and then you have your usable tenant. And thankfully, the building the stripes is pretty much the same as with OKAPI. Other than a few changes in the stripes config and Docker file, every mention of OKAPI needs to be replaced with Kong, And if there's something dealing with authentication, you need to point it towards keykloak as in this example. Plus, there are some variables that you need to set. First off, you need to tell the stripes that it's actually an EUREKA stripe, so is EUREKA needs to be true. And if you're using an ECS environment, you need to set this to true, and probably, I'm not really certain on this, is single tenant to false. And the tenant options. This is a very important line, otherwise you will not get a proper login interfaces, or you get an empty page when you access the stripes. You need these tenant options. It needs to be provided in this form. In this example, Diku is the name of our test tenant. And it is important, this client ID part. This client ID is built, needs to be composed by the tenant name and the content of the KC login client suffix environment variable and manager tenants. And what happens is that when you create a tenant, the manager tenants creates a client in keykloak and a login in a secret in vault for this name. For example, in this example, Diku login application. This needs to be there. If this is not there, then some communication between tenants, manager tenants, and your keykloak or vault didn't work, and you need to redo the whole tenant creation process after fixing, of course, why the communication didn't work. But this basically, if you go through this and it doesn't fail, you then have a usable tenant where you can log in using keykloak and get to your FOLIO instance. So, from our perspective, where are we actually with the current EUREKA adoption process? Thus far, we have successfully created a EUREKA Sunflower installation that currently mimics the AWS deployment. But for us, this is not a production-ready setup, because EUREKA currently is not able to host multiple different versions of the same module. For example, mod users 111 and 112. They can't live together in the installations. You can only have one. And this limits us because we are not able to gradually update tenants in our setup step by step. It's either all or nothing. It limits us in our ability to actually do development on modules, because we can't have different versions of a module living parallel and activating them to select tenants. And we also have a problem with functionality assurance testing. So we cannot have a tenant in the production environment that we singularly update, for example, to a new flower, and then do some tests that in the production environment everything is working correctly. But currently EBSCO is working on these parts. There are two tickets. One is close to finishing, the other is still in the works and is slated for Sunflower CSP2. So we hope this is resolved soon. And if this is resolved, we are optimistic that then we are in the situation that we can create a production-ready tenant. So, what are the lessons learned? What should you take with you on this whole thing? First off, if you deploy EUREKA in the future, plan enough time. Don't take this easy. One does not simply install EUREKA on a Friday afternoon. It doesn't work. It takes the time that you need to do this. Further, you should familiarize yourself with the new structure of EUREKA and know what happens and where you need to look in the logs when something, a step fails. You should also reflect on your own environment and the needs of your environment, especially if you have something very specific to your local environment that you need to take care of. And last but not least, document your progress, and if you can, share it with us. Because I feel, if you're looking back at the discussion yesterday with EBSCO and Craig McNally about the documentation process, it is actually quite difficult to define something like a general purpose deployment strategy, and the solution will probably be that hopefully a lot of people share their way to deploy EUREKA, and that is then becomes a library for everyone to use. I want then to use this opportunity to thank the members of the EBSCO KitFox teams, especially Eldia, Vasily and Oleksiy, who spent quite a long night with us hacking through some very annoying errors. And I want to thank you for your attention. And then we will take questions from here on.
there anything in the chat? No.
I see yeses.
I don't see any questions. You don't know me, but I'm just kind of stepping in.
Thank you.
We are at time, but I also don't see any hands raised, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I raised my hand.
Was
Can you
somebody in
hear
chat?
this?
Oh, this is Ingolf.
Can you hear this?
Yes,
Yes.
Ingolf, we hear you.
Hey.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Great talk. I'm still wondering about the migration plans and if you deploy a sunflower version, how do you want to migrate? Because in sunflower, you don't have sunflower yet. You have ransoms in production.
Actually, we have Casnelia.
Yeah, actually we are on Quesnelia at the moment, yes. Ingolf, we do it step by step. First, we want to have a production-ready platform, and we solve the problems when we have them.
I guess this also greatly depends on what EBSCO will still release on the actual migration plans.
Yeah.
If I have to guess something, we will first try to reach OKAPI ransoms or OKAPI sunflower, depending on what's happening, and then do the crossover to the to a EUREKA platform.
Yeah. Yes. So my original plan was to do that in ransoms because originally there's no OKAPI in sunflower.
Originally not, yes, you're right. But we will see, perhaps we will have sunflower.
Maybe one other
on
question.
OKAPI.
If I have a platform minimal with some snapshots version, how complicated is it to go to a released version? Do I have to do everything again, or can I just upgrade without data?
The general hint is from EBSCO: don't downgrade modules in version. Otherwise, you should be perfectly fine with just replacing the apps. So if you need to change apps, basically you need to unentitle the app that you want to remove from all tenants in your installation, and then re-entitle them with or deploy the new version that you want to use, and then entitle all the tenants again. So they should be switchable.
I will try. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingolf.
Yep. Hello. My name is Alexei. I'm a team lead from EUREKA team. First of all, I want to say you many thanks for your feedback. It was also useful for us. And I want to confirm that the functionality that allow us to deploy multiple versions of module for on the same installation will be in service patch 2. It's currently in progress, current sprint, so it will be ready. And my question is next. You mentioned that it's pretty hard to read logs and get a feedback from manager services like manager tenant entitlement. So do you have an understanding or vision how we can improve it? So what are you expecting to see in manager services to make your life easier? Thank you.
This is actually one of these questions. If the answer were obvious, you would have already done it. I think also Craig already mentioned this in one of the early adopters meetings. The error messages are sometimes quite opaque. You can guess what the problem is once you know or follow the rabbit hole deep enough into the infrastructure, and then you see, okay, there's something went wrong, and then I can guess, okay, this has to be fixed. I suggest look at your error messages, see that they are more verbose on what is actually going wrong. What did it try and where did it fail? If I had to do one suggestion what to improve at this point.
Okay.
If I can interject here, I see there are a number more questions, but we're already 5 minutes into the next session. So I hate to cut it off, and I hate to interject myself here. Thank you very much.
If you still have questions, mail us. We will gladly answer everything that you send us. Yeah?
Thank you.
You find our mail address on the first slide, and you can contact us whenever you want. Okay, thank you.
Bye. Thank you for your attention. Bye.